You and the divine are locked in. Ain't no switching up on either end. And there's a certain fortune and favor that comes along with a connection so deep. And the privileges of said connection have been suspended, if you will, on hold for some indefinite time, but for quite a time. Yet now it seems that suspension has been lifted, almost seemingly suddenly. And the privileges, the favor, the fortune that was always destined to commence, that transport and that transfer is suddenly picking up rapid momentum. I saw a vision of a dam with a crack in it. And for some time, some water will be allowed to trickle through until the crack widens and maybe a little bit more can start to pour in. But over time, without any response to that crack, eventually the power of the water will completely burst that boundary. And that's what's happening with the favor and fortune and privilege of this connection that may have been withheld, held up, contained with quite a force. Now it's about to burst through and completely overtake you in the most satisfying way. What's up, everybody? It's me, Danae. I'm here with a message for you on today, which is Tuesday, June 30th. It's the last day of June. And it's, what time is it? 2:05 on the clock. I hope you're doing well. We're going to get right into this. I don't know where we're going, but that was definitely the preview. I saw the Wheel of Fortune just kind of force its way through my pre-shuffle in so many different ways that it was like, okay, I get it. So, I'm here for that. No shade. I'm here for that in spirit and in truth. But let's see what we got to follow that. All right. Ooh, hold up. The Six of Pentacles. There's the transfer right there. Something due to you that's coming in that once upon a time was a trickle, was a breadcrumb, just a little morsel at a time, or a little favor here, a little fortune there, a little good luck on this, a little unexpected miracle over here. But the overtaking of privilege was not so consistent. There was something else or someone else that was controlling that flow of resource, of maybe perhaps of actual finances. This could even be like a disbursement of payments that were upheld in some type of system, maybe even a justice system at some point in time, where I'm getting that because sometimes I see this card and it reminds, when I'm talking about like trickle of payments and stuff, like installments, that's what I mean. And it reminds me of the time when I was waiting on my unemployment benefits to be released, and every week I was claiming, but they weren't being released because it was that messiness, like post-COVID, where things were just still on delay and just a mess, pretty much, administratively. And it was there to, I was claiming it all the while as I was supposed to, but it all came in one lump sum after the cycle was pretty much damn near over. But I should have been receiving it all along. So that's what I'm getting here. It's like something that you were due to have received over an expanded period of time is now coming all in one full swoop, or one lump sum, or one round experience, one flood of fortune, or whatever. And it doesn't have to be material or financial, but it is interesting that we're starting with the Six of Pentacles, which is exactly that. Like, definitely, it could even be benefits or privileges, as I said before, but emphasis on something financial that's finally coming through. And it could be coming at just the precise time when you actually need it. See, when I was claiming, like, I still had some savings kind of on reserve, not much, it was still, at that time, like, I had something to hold me over, and there was provision, of course, to fill in the gap for things that I truly needed at that time. But when I actually received it, I really needed it. Like, the whole of it was so much more beneficial to me at that time to have all of it at once than it would have been to have just a little bit each week or whatever. So it's something like that here, that this is coming through. The divine always does things in decency and in order, and knowing the end before the beginning, the intended end result for our best good. So whereas we may have anticipated or even desired to have, even after knowing about it, if you didn't know before, it could be something you didn't even know you were entitled to. And reflectively, it could be like, well, damn, that would have been nice to have way back when. We could be talking about years with Pentacles. That would have been nice to have all these years, or all that time that it was accruing interest, or being held up in the justice system, or being withheld from me by people, places, circumstances, whatever. But the present moment of which is finally released to you ultimately proves to be the most ideal. Surprise, surprise. The divine, of course, knew so, So what was meant to be some type of disenfranchisement or inconvenience even, actually works out in your favor. All right, let's see what else. And that could work again, materially, financially, and all the obvious ways. But even that favor and fortune that I'm speaking of, pardon me, where the accrued interest on your end could have been maturity and wisdom, to be in a position to know how to handle yourself when you have a great deal of abundance and privilege at your fingertips, when you can manifest with little resistance, or kind of create whatever you want to create, or invest in whatever you, even energetically, and time and attention into whatever you want. Perhaps at the time when it was initially assigned to you to have that favor and that fortune, you might not have been really ready to receive it and steward it with wisdom, and conservatively, and so on and so forth. So it's like, whatever force may have thought it was being obstinate or resistant to what was rightfully due to you, really was just working in accordance with divine time and divine agenda, so that a delay would be perfectly placed for you to kind of catch up with the interest and maturity of the thing, or the fortune itself, whatever we're even talking about here. And I'm zeroing in on these scales, it's like having to find balance. Maybe temperance, was the interest of evolution for whomever was again assigned to this. Yeah, because that's, I just keep looking at those scales. And there certainly were influences that probably resisted the integration of temperance, or the realization of temperance in certain people, or in those that were at this point, to keep someone in imbalance, or in scarcity, or always in fear or worry for not having enough, or in survival mode, maybe making choices that are out of alignment or out of integrity for the sake of survival, and so on and so forth. There was definitely some type of influence or impression to perpetuate imbalance, to further delay this transference of favor and fortune. But alas, it only prevailed to really groom someone, perhaps in ways that they wouldn't have been otherwise, because it's nothing like, depending on how you receive the lesson or the experience and transmute it, which is all temperance energy, is nothing like some lack and some scarcity to build character, but what kind of character is the question. You could either fall deeper into a lower frequency and start doing strange things for change or anything to survive, or even just primitively going against your own best interests and intentions for the sake of keeping your head above water, in every sense of that ideal. Or it can inspire you to stretch beyond those confines and consider impossibilities, and then actually reach for them, or at least perceive the potential within yourself to expand in that way. So it really is like a coin toss. You never really know how someone's going to respond to resistance and opposition, pretty much until it's too late. Because once you've built that muscle, it's really hard to lose it. It's really hard to go back to some unfit position, or not position, but like unfit state, I guess I should say, when you've already kind of conditioned yourself from a certain strength training, and in this case, that being from the lack of stability or security in certain ways. Could even be like self-esteem security, like not feeling like, not knowing just how resilient you actually are until you're faced with the choice to kind of show and prove, or do or die, maybe quite literally in some cases. Yeah, look at that. And look at that, overnight. There's the transfer. Fully in your possession. Fully, and always was, because again, it was assigned to you anyway. So it always had your name on it. It was always destined to come to you, but the alignment was key. Like someone being in a position to fully receive it, to be attractive for it, to know that they're worthy of it. Like all of these things needed to be evident, as it is with Pentacles, in order for this transfer to be complete. And it seems as though it is, or is about to be. It already is in the spirit. I can definitely sense that. But something about, like I said, that water burst, where it was a trickle, it was a little crack of a stream, where you knew you were good, you knew you were covered. Like I said, even when I was in waiting for those resources that to be released, I was still taken care of. Like the evidence was there that I wasn't going to be without. I never missed a meal. I never, I might have had to juggle a bill or two here or there, but I was always taken care of. And then finally, when it was released, it just enhanced my financial situation that much more, to do more and to, have a bit more freedom and stability at that point. So yeah, there's that. So it's undeniable, what was that? The pop back. So yep, three of cups, something to celebrate, to be happy about, that you actually did follow your intuition and you didn't reject, your that nurturing. That's what I'm getting here. Like, you didn't reject that nurturing that is of such a supernatural origin that it's easy to disregard it or not be appreciative of it. Like I said, that sustainability, even in trickles, even in breadcrumbs, that sometimes isn't quite as holistically satisfying as knowing like you ain't even got to think about whether or not you're taken care of. You can pay all your bills on time and buy what you want and need, and so on and so forth. There is sometimes you can fall, especially in scarcity, you can fall into a spirit of ungratefulness, from a dissatisfaction that could ultimately, again, jade your perspective of what you actually have versus what you either had before or what you would rather have, in place of it, and could ultimately provoke you to act out of this energy in ways that are either self-sabotaging or just, again, like disassociated from the divine alignment that is the channel of which this can come through, if that makes sense. I feel like, someone that we all, at some point in time are challenged or tempted to fall into this energy where it's like, man, get that cup out of here. I don't want to hear that. God loves you. I don't want to hear that right now. I don't want to hear the divine saying, I got you. Like, show me the money type energy. Like, we can all easily fall into that rut on account of like human pressures and stuff like that, and carnal pressures. But I feel a sense of avoidance from that, from the person or people that can relate to this, Let me see, what's on the other side of this? Yeah, and given, yeah, exactly. And given the Three of Cups popped in and preceded this, look at it, that's what somebody is looking at, maybe on some other scale of the on the other polarity of this experience that I'm focused on. It is someone that wishes they would have taken more joy and appreciation for the little things and for life at its simpler stage before it got complicated. And sometimes that is the case, like when you didn't have but so much to worry about, life is a bit, you wish you had more, but at the same time, then when you get a lot, sometimes you can long for the times when it was simple, when you didn't have so much to manage or so many things to pay for, so many accounts to manage, and whatever. So many decisions, high level decisions to be made, and the pressure that comes along with that. So it's like just really finding a balance with the Three of Cups, like in celebration for life overall, no matter what the circumstances are. When I was in waiting, yeah, there was pressure and I couldn't wait until they released it. I may have shed a tear or two at some point, but then eventually it was like, you know what? All you can do is just be grateful that you are right now and wait for the rest to unfold, knowing that it's destined to, because as I said in the beginning, there's a certain fortune and favor that is just assigned to a divine alignment, no matter what. It just comes with the territory. But the waiting, the anticipating, the patience, the temperance for it all to unfold in the natural, here it is, the Ace of Pentacles, that's a test. That is a test, of the universal broadcasting system. All right, let's see. Where else we going after this? Oh, not the Tower. But you know what? I'm getting at the well, again, it could be twofold, definitely that there are some surprises in the foundations that some have built their security upon, for sure. But I also get that this burst, as I said, of flow now not just being, and look back here, and on the traditional card, there's always like this little, to me, it might not even be that, maybe it's a mountain, but it kind of reads to me always, now I'm questioning myself, like I've always seen that as like a little water wave. It might not be, but what I'm about to say is for that connected to that the shock and the surprise that comes with this Tower moment could be the suddenly of it all, that things have gone from it being a sentiment, a spiritual matter, a spiritual consciousness, even like, I know I'm good, I know the divine got me, this cup energy, I know I'm loved, I know I'm worthy, like how you may even have to affirm yourself in the interim between transfer, or realization. The fact that it's actually actualizing in your possession might just be the shock itself. Like, I can't believe it. I can't believe that after all this time, after all this waiting, after all this anticipating, this investing, this working, perhaps, that is finally here in my hands, tangible, manageable, accounted for, spendable, all the things. Like, it's here. It's no longer a figment of my faith or a fantasy of my imagination. It's actually a thing. I feel like that's kind of the mind blown experience. There it is with the Tower. I mean, with the Lovers. Yeah. Like the evidence of that connection that I'm speaking of. Like I said, it's like we locked in, but look at this here. I'm seeing the difference here, the polarity in these energies, where at the Six of Pentacles, it's like almost having a dependency on a higher source to sustain you day to day, like almost a manna from heaven type of effect over here. Going from that, where it's just enough to get by, just enough to know you're still covered, you're still loved, you're not going to let anything fatal happen to you. You'll never, as the scripture goes, be seen, what's the righteous are never seen begging for bread or something like that. That scripture, again, I think it's another psalm. Is it I'm young? I was young. Now I gotta look it up. Hold on. But like you've never hit quite low enough of a rock bottom where you felt completely disconnected from the divine, and then even in those moments when you felt tempted or felt discouraged that you might be, you still held fast. You still held faith. You still readjusted your perspective or that your devotion. So it's like going from that to having those moments of insecurity at times, even believing that you're covered, to knowing that you are, because the evidence is there. Because it's like there's no room for interpretation, consideration, doubt, reconfiguration. It's like your life exemplifies just how favored and fortunate and privileged you are in the spirit, in the natural, as it does in the spirit. Hold on, I'm just gonna get this scripture real quick because I feel like never seen forsaken. I've never seen the righteous forsake. Yep, of course. King David. Yeah, here it is. I was young and now I'm old, yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his children begging for bread. Yeah, that was you. Never went hungry, or never missed a meal that you couldn't afford to. You know, never was down and out too bad that you couldn't get back up. Never was so low that you couldn't see any hope, any silver lining in the sky for a turnaround or promise, you know. And now it's like, with all of that being just a little bit, just a breadcrumb, just a trickle, just a stream, to having this like undeniable flow where everything is working fluidly in your life. Good luck, an exuberance of resources, opportunities, perhaps even money and finances, and great standing, and always having new seeds and new opportunities to grow and plant and expand. Your relationships being harmonious and prosperous, good contracts, you know, like so much abundance in the Lover's card that begots more abundance. Because when when you're operating in scarcity and you can still somehow manage to at least maintain the soul frequency of a Queen of Pentacles, somebody that knows they're worthy of that ace, even if they don't possess it quite yet, to actually possessing it and still maintaining, if not magnifying that frequency from the scarcity experience. It's like, what can't you do? I was about to say, what can you do from, but it's like, what can't you do in that energy, when not only do you have the spirit of abundance, but you have the actual abundance too, and the endorsement of the divine to steward it, you know, because you're trusted to do so. Like, wow, you know. Let me get one more after the Lovers, and I'm actually gonna close it out. And not to mention the actual implication of that card to have partnership and physical human support, you know, for your advancement, where it's not just you, or you're not in some faulty struggle position, even with a partner or whatever. It's like everything having been kind of broken down and cleared away inside of you and outside of you, to make room for this experience, this self-actualization, and this abundant realization. And this, you know what I'm getting also, it's like this Tower is also the dismantling of those resistant forces as well, that have been kind of acting as a block between the transfer of this to this. That's what that Tower also is. It's like, okay, the job's been done. That resistance was used purposefully to advance the receiver and also the divine agenda for the receiver to be advanced and expanded. And now there's no more use for it. Not on this level, not on this um not at this stage. There might be some new resistance in the next stage of life or phase of life, but what was authorized as opposition before or up until this point has been dismembered. Oh. Wow. Do I need to speak on that? I don't really think I do. This is a victory that, like I said, and it speaks to something being undeniable, even if it's not necessarily on display publicly or for the world to see. What it implies to me is a confirmation of what I said, is that you can't not notice it. It's so evident, it's so profound and pronounced that it's as if it's on public display, or it's a spectacle of sorts. But even if it isn't, it's just speaking to the nature of how you won't miss it. You can't miss the reality that is unfolding in your life and through your life experience. Like the reality of your success story has come to a point of culmination where there's no doubt that everything that you've done, everything you've committed yourself to, every choice that you've made, has afforded you this moment of privilege. Even the ones that we call so-called mistakes, that we consider mistakes. The choices that we wish we could do over, or would do differently now knowing what we know. The energies that seem to be working against us. All of that, the divine, which seemed to be taking its sweet old time. That in times when you may have even felt forsaken to some degree. It's like all of that was necessary for this moment of truth, this moment of victory and triumph. It had to be so that you could be. And it's like also the fortune is knowing that, without a shadow of a doubt, that when you come to a culminating point such as this, where it's like everything seems to finally make sense, or it's working out, or there's a lot lower degree of difficulty for doing things, achieving things, just being yourself, and having things work out. That in itself is a reward to feel like, well, I must have done something right, or I must have, there must have been something that would have allowed me to get to this point, especially knowing that everybody doesn't. Not to say everybody can't, but this is someone on a horse, elevated, exalted, standing out from the crowd. That means that everybody doesn't have or doesn't obtain the privilege that even may be assigned to them. Everybody doesn't put themselves in the proper alignment to be a receptive match or a magnetic match for such favor. It could sit in a vault somewhere for all of this lifetime and every other after, until they're ready to receive it, as far as the divine is concerned, because we know how the divine roll, not on our time. So coming to the realization that, like, wow, this is the lifetime that I get to experience this, whatever your this is so affirming. It's so affirming, it's so confirming of an adoration, a divine adoration that you could never really how do I say, like, conceive of just on material things alone. You know, it's like you could have been privileged at birth and had all the riches and all the favor and all the opportunities and privileges that were kind of passed down to you to some extent, but you might not appreciate it at the same level because there's really no disparity in value between having it and not. But there's something to be said about not having. As I said, that scarcity builds character, in whatever way. Again, not exclusively material or financial, but maybe not having the best luck or feeling like the most fortunate, and then suddenly realizing that you are, and maybe that you have been all along. You know, it's just a powerful realization to have that can only set you up for more success in the long run. Because once you know, you can't unknow. And once you see favor on this level that's made so evidently clear to you, it leaves much less room for doubt of your own ability to create, moving forward and perhaps forevermore. When you know you have, like I said, the endorsement of the divine and the the invested interest of the divine. I mean, like I said, there's nothing you couldn't do at that point. Nope. Yep, and here we are on the water. And this is always a promised land card to me, especially in this capacity. It's already on its way, and you are already on your way to that promised land, that realization of peace, of prosperity, that is not just a prayer anymore. Wow. You're already, if you haven't realized it, you will soon, but living in answered prayers. Wow. That's amazing. And this is the end of a cycle and a season of struggle. Look what it's lined up with. And anything that was perpetuating this experience of life: betrayal, backstabbing, disappointments, trauma, drama, that's all being dismantled and dismembered, has been, so that you can have safe passage toward your promise, and it toward you, where it literally meets you where you are and you meet it where it is. Perfect alignment. Wow. That's beautiful. And like I said, it's already done. It's already done. Whether you realize it, literally perceive it, I would be hard pressed to believe that someone that relates to this doesn't. Maybe you don't in the fullest capacity that it is manifested, but you would have to at least know. You would have to at least see some signs at this point of just how covered and cared for and loved you are. I pray you do. I pray that Lord open your eyes to see it, your eye to fully perceive the prosperity that is upon your life, in spirit and in flesh. It is so, and so it is. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, as always, I'll leave you with peace.